Hello friends, welcome to part 2 of the head gasket job here. Today I cleaned all the surfaces here on the head, and what I did was any residual that was on here, like pieces of the head gasket that didn't come off, what I do is I generally just take like a single edge blade, and I just scrape as much of it off as I could. Now, what I'm using is a sanding disc on the die grinder here. And what you want to do is you want to use like a real fine sanding disc, which I had a coarse, but I'm using like an older one on here. And this is soft metal, so you don't want to go crazy with it. You just want to, like, just start cleaning it very nice and easy. Take your time. There's no rush, because you can easily grind into the surface here, and then it'll be an uneven surface, and then you'll have a big problem. You'd have to replace the head. On the block side, it's cast iron, I believe, but I would still go easy with it and take off the residual. Now, on the head gasket that I took off, I'm not really seeing any problems, between this portion here where the oil could pass through into the piston. But I know this was taken apart before, because as you saw in part 1, the valve cover itself was on upside down. I don't know if they didn't clean the surface enough when they did the head gasket job on this, but the guys had it. My friend's had this lawn tractor for like 4 years, and he's never had a problem. So right now, I'm not really sure what the problem could be. I don't know if it's a crankcase ventilation problem. It could be. And what I did was I came over to the tractor here, and I just turned this counterclockwise here to get the piston down. And I don't see any gouges in the cylinder or anything like that. Or, I don't know, maybe stuck rings. I don't know. It didn't sit that long. I mean, he ran it till the end of last year, and I guess it sat for 4 or 5 months or something like that. So what I did was I turned this counterclockwise. Now we'll just turn it clockwise again and get it to top dead center here. And we're ready to put it together. Now, when I went to buy the head gasket set, it usually comes in one pack. It comes with the head gasket, the exhaust, and the intake manifold gasket, and the valve cover gasket. He didn't have it. He had to sell me everything separately. And the only thing he didn't have was the exhaust manifold gasket, which the gasket is in pretty good shape right now. So I'll put it together with the old gasket. If he ever has a problem with an exhaust leak here, I can always go down to his house and, I'll order the gasket and change it out for him. What else did I want to say here? So by the way, he had to give me the gasket set. He had to give it to me in pieces. So I forgot to pick up the valve cover gasket, which he has it in stock. So I'm going to be going up to pick that up. And also, like I discussed in part 1, I'm going to put a inline fuel shut off, because these things are notorious for the needle and seat sticking, and that'll start dumping gas into the crankcase. Then you'll have the same result of it start smoking and locking up and whatnot. So I guess what we're going to do now is, the only thing I have left to do is I want to clean the head gasket, the head bolts. I'm going to clean them up real good. I have the torque wrench ready. We're going to torque the bolts at 20 pounds. And then I'm going to do a valve adjustment on it. I'll adjust the valves at like 4 thousandths, 5 thousandths. Usually I'll do it at 4 thousandths. And I'll be back. Okay, so we're ready for reassembly. Okay, so you have 2 guide pins here. As a matter of fact, this guide pin came out when I pulled the head off. So you want to make sure you don't lose these. The head gasket only goes on one way, okay? You have your guide pin that's up here, and then there's one on the bottom here. And then just make sure, which I already know, the bolts or holes are all lined up good. So I'm going to start by installing the head back on here. And the exhaust is forever in the way all the time here. So you gotta just finagle it till you get the head back on. I'm putting it on upside down already. Okay. So you just want to go in here, make sure your gasket stays on. And then you got one guide pin and then two. And then catch your top bolt here is the easiest way to do it. And like I said in part one, when I had the head off, I cleaned the exhaust surface and the intake surface. I cleaned while the head was off. It's much easier to do it that way. And of course, I clean the surfaces on the head, all surfaces. And where the valve cover goes on here, clean that too, and the valve cover's all cleaned up. So I really don't know what caused this to happen. Like I said, unless the head gasket was just getting ready to go bad, I don't know. But I guess we'll soon find out after it's together. We'll run it. A little bit dark down here, but I'll get it. So what I'll do is I'll just snug every bolt up by hand first before I torque it. Just spin them in by hand for now. I always start at the center. And then I'll go to the outside here. And then the bottom outside, both. And that's how I'm going to tighten them up. I cleaned off the bolts on the bench grinder on the wire wheel part. Be sure you just have everything all cleaned up is the main thing you want to do here. Now just jump over here and tighten this one up. Okay, I'm going to finish, I'm going to do like I said, I'm going to start from the center again and work my way like you saw me do. I'll do it by hand and then we'll torque them. I already have the torque wrench all set up. My torque wrench does torquing in foot-pounds. So that's why we'll do 20 foot-pounds. I don't know what it is in inch-pounds. I don't know. So I'm just going to snug them up pretty good. You know, by going by feel, I know that I'm not going to the whole 20 foot-pounds. I'm just snugging them up. And we'll jump over here like so. Can I get this one in the center down here? Pretty sure I did. Yeah, I got it. Now we'll just jump up here and do this one. Snug it up. And then you got one down below here. What a pain. Have to look at it upside down here. Alright, so I'm going to torque them at that same sequence that you just saw me doing. And then I'll be right back to you. And it's 20 pounds of foot-pounds of torque you want to do. Okay, so I've torqued the head bolts at 20 pounds. Now, another thing I want to point out to you is this. You want to try not to have too much of an extension on your torque wrench, because then that throws off the torque amount. So I use this setup right here, and I did it at 20. And what I do is I did it in the sequence I showed you when I was tightening up the bolts. And what I do is I go over them at least 3 times again. I do the same sequence all the way around and do it 3 times again, and make sure your torque wrench clicks and you're all torqued up. Now, I put the push rods in, and I remember what I told you in part 1, the lighter one goes on the exhaust valve, which goes on top here, and the heavier duty one goes on the bottom. And that's why it's very important to take pictures of everything. It just saves you a lot of grief in case you forget. So this is a little tedious here. So I have this set at 4 thousandths, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo the lock, undo your lock stud here that has the torque bit, which I'm not sure what size that is, and just tighten this up, and we'll do a nice pretty tight 4 thousandths on it. It seems to be pretty good right there. And what I do is I put the wrench, the box part, on the adjuster bolt or nut, and then you just hold it there and tighten your lock. And sometimes it's still I'm not going to tighten that all the way. I'm going to check it real quick first. Okay, so now we're a little loose. Just a little bit. Not too crazy loose stuff. But I do want to just tighten it up a hair more. And this is where the tedious part is about doing this. Now it's too loose. Sometimes it's too loose, too tight, too this, too that, you know. Just take your time and easy does it. Okay, you get the feeler gauge in there, and there's a little bit of a resistance in there. And now I'm going to hold this wrench and try to tighten this lock again. And hopefully it'll be alright. And yes, it's fine. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom, exactly like you saw me do with the intake, with the intake valve. Okay, so I went and picked up the valve cover gasket that I forgot to get when I got the headset, because he didn't have the whole headset, and he gave it to me in pieces. So here's the new valve cover gasket, and what it is you could screw the bolt right through the gasket here, and we're going to put this on right side up instead of upside down like we found it to begin with. The valves are all adjusted at 4,000. So we'll screw this on now. Then the next thing we'll do is we'll hook up the exhaust manifold. And as I told you before, he didn't have the exhaust manifold gasket, but the old one's in pretty good shape, and like I said, if he has a problem, I could just go to his house and pop one in for him. Get these snugged up by hand first. What I like to do is I'll tighten this one up, snug it up some. I do the crisscross. I'll just crisscross these for now. And then we'll just give it one more tightening up. That's tight. That's tight. And this is tight. And that's tight. And we'll just run right across one more time. Don't be afraid to go over your bolts like 3 times. So now what we'll do is we'll put the exhaust on, and we have this one bracket here with the bolt in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start these bolts in here, tighten them up some, and give us some wiggle room so we can catch this one bolt that goes on the bottom here. So stick the bolt in there, place the gasket on here. Hope the bolt doesn't fall out. Make sure this, yep, it's good. I have to get my finger out there because it's caught in there. Now just take the wrench here. We'll get this one started in here. So just turn the bolts in some. Make sure you still have that wiggle room there so you get that bottom bracket bolt in for the exhaust. So you can wiggle it around and catch your bolt. And what I like to do is tighten up the exhaust manifold first. And then we'll tighten that bolt on the bottom, the bracket bolt. I don't have an Allen wrench socket set anymore. That went when I sold my toolbox. So get under here. This one I'm gonna have to stick a pair of pliers on it and turn it and tighten it. It'll be tight enough because they have lock washers on the bolts. So it'll be fine. You can do it this way. Oh, it's good. Give this one more tweak. That's tight. That's tight. So now you can go ahead and tighten up your exhaust bracket bolt. Which is a 3/8 socket you'll need. The valve covers were 7/16 I used socket. In the meantime, I was letting the oil drain out. Now I usually like to warm stuff up before I drop the oil, but I dropped the oil. I let it drain out real good while we're doing this, putting this together here. Alright, so that's all tightened up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook up the intake manifold, which you saw me take it apart. Just reassemble it the way you saw me disassemble it. And then I'll be back to you soon. And then we have this issue here with the stripped out bolt for the oil fill. So I have to put an oversized sheet metal screw in there or whatever I can find here. Maybe one of the self-tappers that I use might fit it too. I think I've done it that way too. So I'll be back to you soon. Okay, so it's all back together. And like I said, I let the oil drain out. And in this one, older Briggs, I put straight 30 weight in it. That's what I use on the older Briggs unless otherwise specified. And I got the brand new plug when I got the head gaskets, and it's a QC 12YC. That's what he looked up when he gave me the headset. So I put a brand new plug in it, and then I had an extra. I got these boots laying around. I keep the old boots off of stuff, so I put a good use spark plug boot in there for him. And then we had this problem over here with the stripped screws. So what I did was self-tapping screw fit perfect. So I got that in. I got one in here. Put the other screw back in the starter cover here. And let's see if we can get it to start. I did the batteries okay. I just gave it a little crank, but I want to start it up in front of you guys, friends. So let's see what happens here. I wish I really knew what the problem was with it. You know, I don't know why it started doing that with the oil. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it up right now, and I know it's going to smoke because there's still oil in the muffler. And then I'll cut the video off, and then I'm going to let it run and let the smoke clear, and then you could join me out in the field and we'll see how it works cutting grass. I'll put the hood back on and everything. Oh, I got to put the air cleaner back on too. the air filter and cover I gotta put back on. So let's see what happens. I hope the battery's strong enough to start it. Nope. Alright. You may need a battery. Might have to replace the battery in this. Alright, I'll be back with you. I'll put the battery charger on it. I don't want to put anything more into this until we know we have the you know, that hydro lock problem resolved here. Okay, let's give it another shot. In the meantime, I popped the air filter back on in the cover and I installed the fuel shut-off. Got enough gas in it. What did I forget to do? Spark plug wires hooked up. I don't know. Maybe a little prime, maybe. Alright, let me take the air. I should have left the air filter off for now. I gave it a shot of brake clean. Let's see if she'll go. Shouldn't be this much of it. There's gas in it, so. Horrible. I don't think the valves are too tight. I adjusted them to 4,000. It's peculiar. Just don't know. Could it be the valves? Doesn't even want to rev up. I wonder if something's up with the let me make sure the throttle linkage and everything's okay, because when I took off the manifold and leaned the carburetor down, anything's possible. So I took the valve cover off, and it appears that the exhaust valve doesn't want to be set at 4,000s. So I set it at 8,000s, and then it started up. Wasn't running too hot, so I just did a quick clean of the carburetor with the carburetor already on it. It seemed like that idle jet that's really tiny. That seemed to be clogged, so I cleaned that out with a bread tie wire, you know, to twist, and I was able to blow some WD through it. I let it run out of gas, so I was able to shoot some WD into the fuel inlet, and whatever ports I could get from the outside, right inside behind the choke, I did. I took the mixture screw out, shot some WD in there, and it seems to be running okay. There isn't any more smoke. So I guess the next thing we'll do is we'll take it out in the field after I get it completely together, and we'll give it a test run. So it seems like it's doing okay. So maybe it was the head gasket just starting to leak. I mean, it looked like a little bit of oil may have been passing through there, because I noticed it was like discolored on the head gasket where it meets the cylinder and the crankcase. But I'm not sure. Isn't that funny how like 4 thousandths adjustment on the valves made the difference? So I did it at maximum. I think they give you between 5 thousandths and 8 thousandths to adjust them, and I think the intake was 5 or 6 or whatever, but I left the intake at 4, so it seems to be all right. So what we're going to do right now is I'm just going to try to cut some grass over here in the little field. We'll see how it does, and I'm going to tell him don't put another penny into this thing until you try it and make sure it's okay. You know, because it may need a battery. I charged the battery up real good, but I'm going to hang on to this for about 3 or 4 days and make sure it's okay. I know everybody's anxious to get the money in for a repair, but me, I like to hang on to machines for 3 or 4 days and keep trying them every day and make sure there's no flaws. Okay, let's get on with the test drive. I'm going to try to fine tune the carburetor a little bit. I just set it at 1.5, turns out, the mixture screw. And I more or less just tried to cut with it. So I'm going to try to adjust it Doesn't mean he doesn't need a carburetor, but I hope this helps somebody out. And thanks for watching. And I'll see you all on the next one.